FASPORT Studios in New Orleans. It's Road Gang Radio with your host, the one-of-a-kind, Jimmy Mack.
One of a kind, by the way, my mom actually calls me one of a kind, but she's not being kind when she says that, by the way. Our friend that is joining us this morning, Patrick Murphy, and we gave you his bona fides before we actually went to the break. He continues to advocate and empower veterans through his work in the public and private sectors as a vetrepreneur. I love that expression, by the way. He spearheads a wide range of business interests and offers veterans the opportunity to launch their own dreams by investing in their company. There's so much else to talk about. You probably have seen him on MSNBC, CBS, the Discovery Network, and elsewhere. And by the way, on a really great note, he currently lives in Pennsylvania with his two children, Maggie and Jack. We are thrilled to have the Honorable Patrick Murphy, friend of Brad Bentley, friend of mine, join us on this most patriotic of days. Well, good morning to you, Congressman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, guys? It's great to be with you. Happy birthday, America. We look pretty good for 249.
I have to tell you, and I got to tell you, whoever they hired as the writers of the last decade have really upped the stakes around here. It's pretty terrific, man. I'm having a blast. This is a great day. I wanted to ask you one question, though. What do you call a duck who likes pyrotechnics?
I don't know.
You call him a firecracker. I just wanted to say that. Good morning, Patrick. Welcome to the party. It's good to have you, man. What are you going to... Okay, before we get to now, what are you doing with the rest of the day? I want to know what Patrick Murphy is doing with his 4th of July.
Well, you know, I'm an Army soldier at heart, right? So, you know, we get more done before 9 o'clock than most people get done all day. So I was just with 100 great Americans, the West Point lacrosse team, the Navy women's lacrosse team, a bunch of other folks here doing a beach workout in honor of the Travis Manion Foundation. Travis Manion was a Marine. He was from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, my hometown, and he went to Naval Academy, became a Marine. On his second deployment to Iraq, unfortunately, gave the ultimate sacrifice. So his sister, Ryan Manion, is a CEO of that organization. They do character building in high schools all over the country because we need to make sure these young Americans know that character that it is so incredibly important, and character is how you are when no one's looking. So start my day, getting it done. I got to keep up with these young guys like Brad, man. I see him all the time at veterans events and stuff, and I gotta make sure to have the gun show, you know, ready when I see him.
Patrick, listen, I'm so glad you brought up the Travis Manion Foundation. We haven't had a chance to catch up recently, but a couple of things that we've been working on that I'm personally excited about. We've connected the Travis Manion Foundation, and you're an ambassador for Hiring Our Heroes. You know, we go over there every fall, well, usually in the spring, to the European summits. It's going to be in October this year. So we're going to be hitting all the installations in Germany, going to Mildenhall over in the UK, and then we're working with the Travis Manion Foundation to actually take their honor project that they normally do on Memorial Day to Cambridge American Cemetery. And that's going to be their first time doing something outside the U.S. So honored to be involved with them. And our mutual good friend, Bo Higgins, as you know, was with Travis when he passed away. And I've been very fortunate to have Bo in my life for about the last decade down here in New Orleans where he grew up. And they have that 9/11 Heroes Run that they do in 90 cities across the country. And we, FASPORT and others, help them with that in New Orleans. That'll be coming up here in September, as you know. And then next Memorial Day, we had some people from Travis Manion actually on the radio a couple of weeks ago. And for Memorial Day 2026, Radio Nemo, FASPORT, and others are actually going to help them at a couple of new cemeteries in the New Orleans area for their honor project. So they're doing great work out there. Man, when you said those 3 words, Travis Manion Foundation, I almost started crying this morning. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Listen, and they're the embodiment of his message that character does matter. And, you know, the backstory is as he was first deployment to Iraq, came back and he was getting sent. And someone said, hey, well, what happens if you get injured or whatever? And he's like, listen, I was trained to be a U.S. Marine. And he goes, if not me, then who? And it's a really important Bible verse. And, you know, it's, as the Bible says, we all have a servant's heart. And that's why, you know, gentlemen, it's always great to be on Radio Nemo with you guys. You know, you all know I'm a 3rd-generation veteran. So my grandfather, World War II, Navy in the Pacific, came back home, was a Teamster, drove a truck for Acme Supermarkets, 18-wheeler for decades. That's how the Murphy family got by. My father followed his footsteps in the Navy during the Vietnam era, also drove a truck, and then, partner with Brad, I'm third generation. I did work for Roadway, not driving, stacking the trucks, and then I joined the Army at 19, and just that kind of that work ethic really, gave me the grit and the tenacity to do what I've done and to do it every single day and show up for things like a beach workout when no one's watching. There's no cameras around, right? We're out here getting after it, contributing and trying to pay forward and bringing young Americans to let them know the story of what folks have done for us in the past. But the greatness of America in our 249 years is, more importantly, what we're going to do in the future. And that is, to live by the embodiment of the Constitution in order to form a more perfect union. And that's the preamble of our Constitution. That's what we got to do every day to make it better, our communities and our country.
Patrick, one of the things that we have, everybody's got their core constituency, and our core constituent here at Radio Nemo is the owner-operator, the independent driver. In many ways,
Yep.
That's what we do for a living here at Radio Nemo. We always have been an owner-operator, independent driver of an organization, which of course means that they are entrepreneurs, and many of them are veterans, and that falls into being a veteranpreneur, as you kind of refer to them as. Can you kind of unpack that, though, about what steps, because a lot of people, FASPORT does a really great job of kind of getting people onboarded to a purpose-driven life outside of the military, but there are people who in their last 3 or 4 years begin saying, I want to be the master of my own fate. I want to be a small business owner when I get out of the military. You've made this kind of one of your missions as well. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit for us about what it means to be vet-friendly to yourself and vet-ready to yourself to become actually a small business owner as a veteran when you come out into the private sector?
Yeah, it's a tough gig to own your own business. Everybody knows that. It's not for the faint of heart. But the greatness of our country is that we have the number one military in the world and the number one economy in the world. And that's not our God-given right. We got to work at it every single day. And 98% of the businesses out there are small businesses. And these entrepreneurs, or if you're a veteran, then become a vetrepreneur. I look back at, some of the most iconic global brands were started by veterans. So what's the largest retailer in the world? Walmart, started by World War II veteran, Army veteran Sam Walton. Came back, started at age 41. The largest sports apparel company in the world, Nike, started by Phil Knight, Army veteran. It was him and his track coach at the University of Oregon, Bill Bowerman, who earned a Silver Star in World War II. They started Nike. And then, you look at, the largest media company, Comcast, Navy veteran, Fred Smith, who just passed away last week, U.S. Marine in Vietnam, started FedEx, Ralph Lauren, Polo, veteran, Enterprise Car and Rental, Wendy's Restaurants. I can go on and on. I won't bore you guys. But the point is, why I'm so passionate about it is, like Brad will tell you, man, we're all about solving problems. We're trying to create opportunities. So for me, being an entrepreneur, I teach this at the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm a part-time lecturer there. And, what I tell these young Americans, listen, it's hard work. It's not 9 to 5. It is stressful. You make a payroll, people putting their lives and their families, food on the table. And, there's a lot of pressures, but there's a lot of rewards too. So it comes with great risk, comes great rewards. But the reality of it is most small businesses won't make it. And that's okay. But you better have a good business plan going into it. You better say, what pains am I solving, and those type of things. Because, right now when I look at it, and Brad's heard me say this, half the veterans in World War II came back home and start doing small business. My generation of Iraq, Afghanistan veterans, it's less than 5%. So that's why, I'm a venture capitalist. I've invested with my partners over $250 million in 200 veteran-owned companies. We're very proud about that. Some of them are just kicking ass and taking names. I teach about it, part-time at the Wharton Business School. I talk about it on my show, Warrior Money, on Yahoo Finance. Or, I'm on Fox News. Like I was on Fox News yesterday talking about, pride is patriotism. I wrote this column for Substack about that, right? So it's very dynamic, but at its core, do you have the guts to put yourself out there to create a business and to work it and plan your work and then work your plan?
I want to kind of follow that up too, by the way, because, the idea that, you can even do, let's just say you do, you're successful, you do 15, 20 years in, and then you move into actual retirement. I wanted to ask your advice on behalf of many of our listeners. many of whom have just kind of joined the workforce, having left the military. It's a good idea, though, to actually get your feet wet in the private sector as an employee first before jumping in feet first? Or do you feel like there's a way to kind of jump in feet first? Or what is the recommended pattern that you would make to anybody? They come to you and they say, Honorable Patrick Murphy, I need some help here. I want to start my business. What steps should I take now that I've left the military to get to that destination?
Yeah, and I would say, it is hard to go right into it, right? Because, again, yeah, you can take small business loans and stuff like that, but, it's important to put that sweat equity in, but you can usually do it as a side gig first. So I do tell people transitions are really tough, and Brad and I are out there, every day because there's 200,000 active troops to become veterans. And so, I don't say, hey, go start a small business, go start a small business. What I say is, hey, maybe get a job, a day job, and then if you have this passion, go do it, and then work it on the side, for time, because then you're still putting food on the table, and you're not putting all your eggs in that one basket. But if you've been working for decades or something like that, this issue, then go for it. But, I would say, probably ease your way into it. Just don't jump in and always learn. And even these corporate jobs or small company jobs, you're going to learn a ton from it. And then you can learn that stuff and then apply it to your own business, as you create it. But at the end of the day, when you create a business, it is about capitalism, right? So it is, are you bringing revenue in? Are you selling product? Are you solving pains? It's not just because you have a good idea, but are you going to have customers that are going to see, hey, maybe that is a good idea and I want to buy it.
I'm going to tell you a really great story with my father, Army veteran. He's now a little long in the tooth, although he's moving a little better these days than he was a couple of years ago. I take him grocery shopping. We were at Trader Joe's, and there was an older gentleman who was actually rigging up our groceries. And my dad was wearing his Vietnam-era veteran hat, and the guy says, Army, and he goes, yeah. He says, me too. And he says, what you doing here? And he said, well, this is my gig that pays for my printing shop. And it was really kind of moving. He said, I've got my own business going. He said, but in order to kind of, make up the gap and make sure that my kids have what they need, I work here. And then I get up in the mornings and go work at the print shop and then work an evening shift. That's kind of the pattern, right? I mean, that's the kind of commitment you have to make. It's an around-the-clock deal when you first get started doing your own business, correct?
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what I tell people. You have to have that grit and that tenacity. And it is not a 9-to-5 job. So just like driving a truck isn't, right? And so those owner-operators are doing the same thing. Like, it's easy to fall into the ranks and work for, someone. But, when you become an owner-operator, that's when you're running your small business. And then maybe you can get, build up a little fleet. And that's how you grow. But you got to take, crawl, walk, run analogy. You can't just go start trying to run. You're going to trip and fall most of the time, right? And when most small businesses fail, it's smart to do it like that printer did, and that's what I try and let people know, and to pivot as well when need be. Like, yes, you might have a vision, you might have, this plan, but it's just like when I was in Iraq in combat, right? You can have a plan, you can have an operations order, but when you get punched in the nose, that plan might change a little bit, right? So it's like, you got to be ready to pivot a little bit, and so you succeed and continue the march.
Patrick, speaking of pivoting, I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the previous administration had started this action plan that became something known as Task Force Movement, which you have chaired. Kind of recap for our listeners what TFM has done for the trucking industry. And with the change in the economy recently, some new executive orders are out, maybe some of the other industries you're looking to do things with. Because I do know, and a shout out to our mutual good friend Liz Bellcaster, the next in-person meeting for Task Force Movement is actually going to be down here in New Orleans on July 23rd. And we're going to be happy to host them and let them join in all the fun with Radio Nemo and FASPORT that night.
Yeah, listen, and I think most Americans agree with us. They don't care if it's a Democrat idea or Republican idea. Is it moving the ball forward on behalf of our communities and our country? And so, Task Force Movement is a public-private partnership initiative where we're trying to recruit young Americans, veterans, other folks to go into the transportation industry, including trucking, including maritime. And I know there's a lot of work to do there. I know, Brad, I know you at Passport is working their tail off because we need to make sure we're doing the shipbuilding and other things to keep our country strong and our Navy, the number one Navy in the world. But Task Force Movement, we focus on 3 industries. It's transportation, it's healthcare, and it's cyber. Why? Because we're 80,000 truck drivers short and that's that last mile. We got to make sure that people understand that driving a truck is a family-sustaining profession. The fact is that most truck drivers, like my father, like my grandfather, were home for dinner most nights. Most aren't over-the-road truckers. So, and the pay scale there and the things that you can do there and how important that is. So that's why the paying we're doing that. We raised over $6 million in these public-private partnerships. We had the first one that drive for first 500 scholarships, and these are scholarships for young Americans to get their CDL license. So that was widely successful. We're doing it now for cybersecurity to get their certifications. They don't necessarily need a 4 years college degree. They just need these cyber, certifications. And then last but not least, in healthcare, we're about 1 million nurses and healthcare professionals short. We got to do a better job at making sure we're taking care of the generation that's getting older, and letting them know that, yes, there's a lot of burnout in the healthcare field, et cetera, but it's a great profession to live. As I said earlier, what the Bible talks about is that having a servant's heart and, giving to others. And you can really give it every day, if you're a nurse or nurse practitioner or physician assistant or a doctor.
Yeah, and I appreciate that recap, Patrick. I'm excited about a project that's kind of on the front burner, too, for Task Force Movement right now. That's this new trucking academy, some training that's going to take place up in the state of New Jersey. In conjunction with one of your great partners, the Dixon Center, and I know Teresa Watson out there with the Minority Professional Trucking Association, and I think we're going to have a lot of good content and updates for that in a couple of weeks down here. So excited to be moving forward, and we're honored to be a part of that as well.
Yeah, and that's really important because most folks don't understand the opportunities that are out there. Like, when I did this radio show each week for Yahoo Finance called Warrior Money, I talked about leveraging the opportunities that you have. If you serve in the military, leverage the GI Bill, so you don't have to go into debt. You don't have to get a student loan, right? You can get that paid for. You get your books paid for. You get housing allowance. Use that as leverage from the jump during that transition period. Or the VA home loan, right? Leverage the VA home loan. You don't have to put the 20% down. And so there's just opportunities out there. And, if you want to go and in a transportation field, especially in the trucking, there's scholarships out there that you don't have to spend the $10,000 to get your commercial driver's license. Get your CDL on via scholarship through Task Force Movement, and you can find out more at taskforcemovement.org. But Brad, you've been a phenomenal, leader in that. I was just with the former governor of New Jersey, Jim McGreevey, who was with us in Newark that day, and then we were in Newark and at Jersey City and Elizabethtown. So we've been doing a lot of stuff with the ports up there, with the trucking, and there's a lot more work that we got to do. We can't boil the ocean, but we could sure get after it every single day.
We're joined this morning, by the way, in case you're just joining us, we are actually live on the 4th of July. A lot of other trucking platforms are taking the day off. We don't do that around here. We believe in letting freedom ring. Patrick J. Murphy, the Honorable Patrick J. Murphy, joins us this morning, as does Brad Bentley, the president of FASPORT. Brad has another question for you, Patrick.
Yes, it's really more of a comment. I'm so glad you brought up the benefits, because that's one of the things that FASPORT's run across. We are the Department of Labor's industry intermediary for transportation. So we put a lot of people into registered apprenticeship programs, and one of the benefits to that veteran, if they go to work for a company that has registered apprenticeships, they can leverage that monthly housing allowance that you mentioned, and that's money in their pocket. And that helps the companies from a retention standpoint. And it's one of those things that not a lot of people know is out there, and they haven't utilized all of their GI Bill. And it's a no-brainer from that standpoint, and that's really been the secret sauce for us, the great work that Dave Harrison and his team do. And Jamie Pace on our side is probably the best-known expert. Other intermediaries, other companies are always reaching out to us about how other companies and industries can leverage that monthly housing allowance. We're very proud of that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, and it's not, when you're focused on your day job as a U.S. military professional, you're not really thinking about the next step. You're not thinking about the job after that. You're not thinking about leveraging the GI Bill. It's important to think, when we call left of boom, before you leave, thinking about it months, if not years ahead of time, that because everyone's going to leave at some point, right? And when you leave, what are the opportunities that are out there? What industry you want to go into? What geographic part of the country do you want to live in that's competitive, that you get a family-sustaining wage, those type of things. And so, Brad, I appreciate you because I know you're out there, really working on behalf of our men and women in uniform and their families. And incredibly important, especially when, the pain point of right now, there's a 24% unemployment rate with military spouses. So, for the Radio Nemo listeners out there, when you think about that, wow, like most American families are dual income families, but our military families, 24% of those spouses are looking for work and can't get jobs. So, we got to do a better job as a nation. This isn't a whole of government approach. Like, oh, well, what's the military doing? DOD, VA, Department of Labor. No, man. This is a whole of nation approach, coming together to do what we can to those who've sacrificed so much for all of us.
By the way, it makes me very proud of my father now, because when he spoke at Anniston, when I received the Patriot Award, we actually asked him to speak, and he wouldn't talk about his own service. He pivoted to my mom, who, while she didn't serve, she was his spouse and had 3 sons in Bethesda, Maryland, when all that was going on, and he really kind of focused on her. We got a phone call coming in for both you guys. It's John Fry is giving us a call on the 4th of July. Wants to talk to the Honorable Patrick Murphy and our good friend Brad Bentley. Hey, John, what's happening, brother?
Hey, happy 249th, guys.
Thank you, John. Thank you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. You're talking about hog roast, waiting for you guys to come out so we can pick our own hog, you know what I mean?
Patrick, every time I talk to John, this is the exchange. Hey, Jimmy Mack, you got to come out to Texas and we'll shoot some hogs. Well, I got to get my guns from California. What are you talking about? I got a gun for you. That's exactly the exchange every time we talk. Happy 4th to you, John. Good to have you. What's on your mind, man?
Just listening. Congratulations on the new platform. Think it's awesome. Patrick, it's always a pleasure to hear you, and appreciate all you're doing for the industry. I think our paths first crossed probably back about 2016. I think you came down to Fort Hood. I was with a carrier, had a truck driving school, and you come down and visited that, and we put you in the truck there or whatever, and then we just kind of been crossing paths ever since then. And as you know, if you know Brad, then you probably know everybody. So Brad does so much for the industry and with the all the different programs. So kudos.
John, thanks, man. You're a great American, buddy. It was great to see you, and you took care of me when I was down at Fort Hood, when I was helping run the Army in the Pentagon as the Undersecretary of the Army. And we have crossed paths. Listen, if you know Brad Bentley, that guy knows more. He's like the most political person I ever met that's not a politician. I mean, he knows everybody. He's kissing babies. I mean, people love him because he has a big heart, and he's trying to help people all the time, and he's giving them good advice and giving them good opportunities. And John, I know you're doing the same thing, for these young Americans. And I appreciate you. I appreciate this industry that really bends over backward. Is one of the most patriotic industries, the trucking industry and transportation. And I will tell you, the Murphy family wouldn't be where they were. I joined the Army in 19, but I had that work ethic, that row house mentality that was instilled in me by my grandfather, my mom and dad, and my brother and sister served. My brother served 2 deployments in the Air Force. My sister serves as a public school teacher, right? But, what we all do together is incredibly impactful and changes lives. And John, I appreciate you calling in. I appreciate all that you do. And, I'm your battle buddy, brother. If there's anything I do to be helpful to you or your teammates, you let us know.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. And just for the record, we know that, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Brad, even though this is a 249th, I think it was 2 years ago, we were in the tunnels of Cu Chi, and we celebrated the Marine Corps birthday in the tunnel. Yep. And we got the 250th coming up November 10th, Brad, so just put that on your radar. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you and Jimmy and the rest of the crew on the 23rd.
Can't wait to see you, John. Love you, brother.
And by the way, everybody out there needs to know it's 249 today for the good old USA. It's 250 for Washington taking command. This month, and just before this month is when General Washington took over the whole enchilada, and he did it by keeping his mouth shut and handling himself with absolute honor. So it all kind of begins with George Washington's decision to raise a regiment and take it on up to Boston to try to relieve those folks up there. John, it's great to hear from you. Happy 4th of July, my friend.
Same to y'all.
That's, of course, John Fry.
Hey, can I just mention something, Jimmy, if you don't mind?
Please.
I always bust John and my Marine buddies' chops because I say, you know what Marine stands for? Muscles are required, intelligence not essential. And John and the boys, those Marines, they give me a hard time because I was Army. I was a U.S. paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division. They give me a hard time. They say, Murph, you know what Army stands for? I say, no, what's that? They go, aren't ready to be Marine yet. I said, yeah, right. I was like, listen, us land forces, the Marines and the Army, we got to band together. We bust each other's chops like brothers and sisters. But I tell you, I'd run through a wall for John and my brothers and sisters. And we have a good time bust each other's chops. But it's all for good cause. And it is important that people forget that the Army, Navy, Marine Corps were started before the 4th of July, that our military was ahead of the charge before our country did that Declaration of Independence. And we had a phenomenal leader in General George Washington. And, it wasn't all peaches and cream. They had a lot of setbacks. They had a lot of, that went through Valley Forge. The fact that we, on Christmas Eve, that surprise attack, in Trenton from Washington's Crossing. And that's right near where I live, permanently, right there on that Delaware River. And I will tell you, we owe it to that generation, our forefathers, to make sure that we're citizens of this great nation, that we're moving the ball forward on behalf of our communities and country. And it's little things. It's little things. You see someone in uniform say, thank you, sir, ma'am, for your service. You see some police officer, thank you, sir, ma'am, for your service. You're courteous on the road. You're doing what's necessary. And I will tell you, I was driving a truck once. I was 9 years old. I was going down to Maryland, a quick hop down and back.
That's peak 70s, by the way, Patrick. That is peak 70s, because I can tell you, driving a truck at 9 is something else, dude. Go on.
Yeah. No, yeah. And so I was 9, and I was driving. I was passenger, and I'll tell you. And I never forget, all these kids driving by, and the kids in the back seats, and they're doing to my dad, do the horn, do the horn. And that's it. I said, Dad, do you ever get tired? He goes, I love this job. I love it. And you just give them a smile, and that's what America is, man. Listen, we bicker, we fight. It's what politics is. It is what it is. But on July 4th of all days, it's like Christmas and New Year, right? We all come together. We celebrate our great nation. And we are so blessed. And as President Ronald Reagan once said, we are the shining city on the hill. That we're not perfect, but people look up to us because we have values, because, even when we get in fights overseas, yeah, we kick ass, we take names, but we don't try to take their treasure. We don't take their land. We do it because we're trying to do the right thing for this world and not let people be oppressed, and to make sure that we're keeping our families safe here at home.
Patrick, we got to let you go because we got a whole bunch of other people showing up here, and the fact that you gave us this much time on the 4th of July means the world to us. I have one more thing to tell everybody. I want to tell you this, Patrick. My dad and my brother, who is a Marine, watched the Army-Navy game together, and my brother stopped cheering for Navy eventually because one time he jumped up, got in my dad's face, and my dad went, "Oh, it's good to finally admit that you're in the Navy, isn't it?"
I love it.
Patrick, thank you so much, my friend. We are, like I said, honored to have the Honorable Patrick J. Murphy. You can find him at patrickjmurphy.com. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, boys. Have a great day. Happy 4th. Happy birthday, America.